In just a few moments, want to be a New York State Trooper? Well, they want you, in a good way, that is, and we'll explain how. But we begin with a national spotlight on MS-13 and the dozens of alleged killings that police say the brutal Central American gang has committed on Long Island in just the last 4 years. TV 1055's Jennifer McLogan takes a look at the proposed crackdown.
We need to target our children as young as 5 years of age.
Carolyn Baez directs programs for youth enrichment services. Her office is directly across the street from the Central Islip Community Park, where the bodies of the 4 young men were discovered bludgeoned to death last month, presumably by machete-wielding MS-13 gang members, say police. Her group spent the weekend getting rid of gang graffiti and now has a message for Albany, where the state is targeting gangs with proposed legislation.
We need after-school programs that will target the social and emotional part of their lives. We need more mentoring programs, mental health services, tutoring programs.
Long Island was mentioned in every national news show, every one. And it was all about MS-13.
State leaders from both sides of the aisle recently joined the U.S. Attorney General on Long Island, pledging action on a series of measures. Today, the Senate began with a push for penalties. Minimum sentence for A1 gang felony, 20 years. Creation of 7 new felonies, including solicitation of minors. Defining a street gang as one with a common name, sign, dress, symbol, or tattoo. Funding for anti-gang curriculum in our schools.
We do not want the same thing to happen to their child that happened to mine and her best friend.
Robert Mickens' daughter, Nisa, and best friend Kayla Cuevas were innocent victims of the MS-13 street gang operating in Brentwood, say police. 6 have been charged with their murders. Mickens is now running for Brentwood School Board and hopes legislation in Albany is far-reaching.
It's very important that this bill goes through because it affects everybody's lives.
The new anti-gang bill next goes to the Democratic-led Assembly, where some are asking for even more emphasis on education and prevention. A vote is expected there in the final weeks of the regular legislative session, which ends in June. From Central Islip, Long Island, Jennifer McLogan, TV 1055.
And joining us now is Suffolk County and Central Islip legislator Monica Martinez. Welcome to the show, Ms. Martinez.
Thank you.
So your thoughts on what should be done?
There's a lot that needs to be done. First of all, we need to really take a comprehensive approach as to what has taken place so far. And I'll tell you, this is a community that is full of hardworking individuals, students that attend both Brentwood and Central Islip that really just want lives for themselves and go to college and do well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it's a frightening time for a lot of people, and rightfully so, with the number of killings that we've talked about in such a brutal fashion. You're pretty close with the families, right? Because you represent
Yes.
Central Islip in the Brentwood area.
Yes.
And you've met with the parents of the 2 young teen girls who were so brutally murdered. What do they think of all this?
Well, the 2 teen girls, I had them when they were in 6th grade.
You were a teacher.
I was their administrator. I was their assistant principal at East Middle. And
so you knew these kids as they were forming. What kind of young girls were they?
They were great girls, good kids, the usual running in the hallways, you know, and just trying to be kids. And they were wonderful. Kayla and I would talk on a regular basis and just sometimes even have lunch together, and after school just chat, just girl to girl.
Well, there's the thread right there, because one of them, according to police, confronted a gang member in the school, Now, what about that? People are frightened to think that their kids are going to encounter these gang members who are then going to track them down and kill them on the street.
You know, it's unfortunate because the school should be a safe place for our kids to learn. And we are seeing that they are in our schools, and the confrontations do take place in our schools, and then they spill out onto the streets.
That's something new?
No, it's not.
How so?
This is something that I could tell you as a teacher myself, that was a teacher 16 years ago. I had students that would come up to me and said that they were involved in gangs and they couldn't get out.
Well, what are you supposed to do as a teacher? There's probably rules and laws on this as well, right? Confidentiality. Yet, on the other hand, here's a person that you yourself, as a responsible member of society, perceive as a potential threat to your other students. What are you supposed to do about that?
So, for example, when I was the administrator over at East Middle, if the teacher saw that a student was, you know, that had certain writings on their notebooks or certain things that caused alarm or raised a flag, we have SROs, which are school resource officers that are in our school buildings, and if we saw something that didn't seem right, we would call the SROs, we would call the police officers in, speak to the child, we would bring the parents in and say, look, this is something that you should be looking into.
Now, what about the issue that was raised this past week in Washington? This is getting a national spotlight from the Trump administration on down. He's there, the police commissioner, Timothy Sinney, and he's testifying that there's over 4,600 unescorted minors who were brought into the country in the past few years under the Obama initiative that allowed that, and that a percentage of them have become part of MS-13. 1% will be 46. He says there are a total of 600 in the county altogether. So he's probably saying a couple of percent. Some people would say is one too many. What is happening that this population is coming in and they're so vulnerable to being recruited into the gangs?
Well, look, they themselves are fleeing areas that are in disarray, whether it's civic unrest or you know, they themselves are running away from the gang life in their own countries. But now
that's been brought here to people who settle peacefully here, to families that welcome them in, and then some of their children or their relatives get targeted.
You know, but the problem with that we're seeing is that we don't have enough opportunities for these children who are coming in. They're coming in, we're putting them into the schools, but there aren't any after-school programs for them. Even for our families, we don't have any resources for our families.
This almost becoming a political issue because immigration was such a big national divide to begin with. Folks on one side saying, well, here's the proof, unescorted minors coming in here and doing terrible things, even to their own citizens. And then on the other side, people saying, no, it's just a small percentage and it would happen anyway. How does that complicate the ability for us to figure out what's the right thing to do here?
So I don't think it should become a political issue. This is definitely, it's becoming, obviously, but it shouldn't be, because these are lives that we're dealing with. These are children's lives that we are losing to violence. We're losing lives to drug epidemics as well, and it's something that we have to really focus as elected officials too, and community leaders.
So where does the law enforcement component of this come down? We've got the state police, we've got federal resources through the Attorney General and the FBI being brought to bear on this. Where do you come on that debate? Because right now you have a bill in the state Senate that wants to target the gangs, in part by the way they look or their tattooing or their association with other members, and it kind of fell flat in the state assembly immediately, where it was considered too pervasive, and maybe it'd go back to allowing the police to target minorities. Where do you come down in that debate?
Well, look, I think having police and having tools and resources for police to do their job is very necessary and very important. I don't think it's the only component. I think this is something that, again, needs a comprehensive view. It needs everyone on board, not only the local police, but like you said, our state troopers, and I commend our Governor Cuomo for also helping us out and putting our state troopers on our roads. So we need the police resources, you're saying? We definitely need the, but it's not just that we need. We need to also focus on youth programs, and we need to focus on investing in our community.
Because somehow you got to break through that barrier, that hold that they have on a part of the community that can prove to be deadly, murderous, even horrifying. People afraid to walk out of their houses, worried about their teen kids. I mean, this is not the way life should be.
It shouldn't. You know, we should have kids playing in their front yards, in their backyards, walking down the street, just playing on their street basketball. It's something that it's a cause of alarm, of course, and no one is taking this lightly at all, but it's something that should not be politicized. Commissioner
Sinney, he pointed out, he said they're a little different and they haven't moved up the escalation of organized gang crimes, and that they're not really in the business of extorting the people with businesses here, but instead they're kind of having members infiltrate by getting jobs at, like, the grocery store, and nobody knowing who they are until they're called upon to do some act. Do you see it that way?
I have put my trust in our police department to do what they have to do, and Commissioner Sinney has been at the forefront of all this. Our police department has been at the forefront. Every single department has been at the forefront. Are they infiltrating our communities? Of course. They are in our grocery stores. They are working.
Talk about the grief of these parents. You've become very close to them, and what message they want us to get and how we can help them.
Well, if you really listen to them, and their focus is really the schools, and the fact that certain things start in the schools, and we need programs and we need funding for our children, and it really comes down to investing in our kids. You know, our district doesn't really get the funding that other districts get. We are not.
So it's a money issue?
It's a money issue. It's an attention issue. It's economic development. It's investment.
It's so much. We could do the whole show on this. Suffolk Legislator Monica Martinez been comforting the parents of some of these teens who were slain on our streets on Long Island here by this gang that we have no control over yet. Suffolk Legislator Monica Martinez, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.